Hi, it's Allie and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about all the books that I want to read in March. So this is just a general list of books that I might want to pick up in March. I may not pick up all of these, I may pick up some of them, or I may read additional books that are not on this list. So let's go ahead and get into it. So first up, I have a new release, and that is The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. This book follows Elsa, and it starts in the 1920s. And Elsa is getting older and she is deemed unmarriageable. And in the 1920s, being married is really the only option for a woman. So she ends up getting into a marriage of convenience. Now it fast forwards to the 1930s, and the guy that she married has a farm, and the farm is failing. And every day she works really hard for her children. Now she has to make the choice to either stay in Texas and work on this land and try to keep it profitable, or she can follow everyone else and move to California. So other than that general synopsis, I've not heard much about The Four Winds. I don't think a lot of people have quite read it yet. But The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna is one of my favorite books of all time, and I absolutely love that story. I think that this book will be really great to read. Now, more than likely during this book, I'll probably will be crying my eyes out at some point or another. During The Nightingale, I cried through several parts in that book, and Kristen Hanna is just that type of author that can pull emotion out of her readers. Next up, I have It Sounded Better in My Head by Nina Kenwood. And this is a YA contemporary / romance novel, and it follows Natalie. And Natalie's parents had just gotten divorced, and her two best friends are now in a relationship with each other, and she is the third wheel. One night she goes to a party and she meets a boy that she's known, but he's a lot different than what she had expected. I think this will be a great book to read this next month. It's a YA contemporary, so typically those are just light reads. I think it will be a good book to read between my heavier books. Next up, I have The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. This is a middle grade novel that follows a group of kids that are magicians, and they're trying to save their town. I'm excited to read this book. I think it just seems like a very fun book to read, a fun middle grade novel to read. I'm hoping to read it to one of my kids if they will sit down long enough for me to read it. It's getting a little busier with baseball season, but I'm hoping that we can find time to read it this next month. I think the artwork on this front cover is gorgeous. I think all of the kids look super cute on here. I'm just excited to get to this book this next month. Next up, I have a historical fantasy novel, and that is Hunted by the Sky by Tanaz Bathina. And this follows two different people. It follows a girl named Gal, and her parents were murdered because of the mark that she has on her arm, and she just wants revenge. The other person is Cavis, and he is working for the king's army, but he meets a mysterious girl, Gal, and finds himself in a mission of vengeance. I think this book sounds very interesting. It's set in India, but has those fantastical elements, so I'm excited to see how they blend these things together in this book. Next up, I have a YA contemporary, and that is To Be Honest by Maggie Ann Martin. This book follows Savannah, and Savannah's sister just went off to college last year, and Savannah's going into her senior year of high school. But she's a plus-sized girl, and her mom is always constantly nagging her about losing weight and what she should and should not eat. I'm excited to read this novel just because I haven't read a lot of stories about plus-sized girls or women, and I think there needs to be more books like this. Next up, I have Incantation by Alice Hoffman, and this book follows Estrella, and it is set in Spain when Spain was trying to convert Jews to Christianity, and the Jews that did not want to convert risked everything in their lives. It was a very dangerous time in Spain for Jews, and I think this book is going to be super interesting. I've not really read anything around this time era, so it'll be interesting to learn some more things about this point in history and what the Jews went through. Next up, I have an adult romance, and it is Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. And this follows Rosie and Dominic, and they are high school sweethearts. They've been together a long time. They've been married for a long time. But Rosie feels like the man that she fell in love with is no longer there, that Dominic is a completely different person. Her girlfriends are encouraging her to look out for herself and find herself again, but she doesn't want to give up on Dominic. She asks him if they can go to a relationship rehab, and to her surprise, he agrees to it. I'm so excited to read this book. I feel like most romances are not about married couples, and I think some romances are like that because they are trying to get to the point of marriage, right? So they're trying to start from the beginning and the blooming romance, but once you get married, the romance doesn't just leave. You still have the romance there. So I'm excited to read a book that is about a married couple and maybe some of the struggles that a lot of married couples go through and how they overcome those difficulties. Next up, I have a YA contemporary, and that is I Want to Be Where You Are by Christina Forrest. And this book follows Chloe. And Chloe is a dancer. All she wants to do is ballet, but her mom does not want her to do that anymore. So this book is about her fighting to follow her dream of dancing. I picked a lot of YA contemporaries for this next month just because I feel like February has kind of been a slow reading month for me. I think maybe it's because I started out with a book that I didn't enjoy that much, but I just need a little pick-me-up, and YA contemporaries typically are easy, lighthearted books that you can read and get through quickly. Next, I have The Cold is in Her Bones by Peter Nell van Arsdale. And this book follows 3 people, Mila, Niklaus, and Iris. And they try to stay away from this town, because if they go to this town, demons are there and they steal people away. But Iris ends up going to this town and gets stolen by a demon. So Mila is on a mission to find her, but Mila might be possessed by a demon as well. So this is sort of like a historical fantasy novel. I think this sounds very interesting. I've heard some good things about it. I've not heard of a lot of people reading this. The synopsis does not have a whole lot of information of what the book is about, so I'm interested to read it to see more about the plot and more of what might go on in the story. Next, I have an historical fiction novel, and that is Fatal Throne. Now, this book is a collection of different views of people, and each person in this book is written by a different author. So as you can guess, this book is about the wives of Henry VIII. If you don't know who those are, Henry VIII's wives were either divorced, beheaded, or they died. Henry VIII was so set on getting an heir and was upset when his wives could not produce him a male heir. So like I said before, each perspective in this book is written by a different author. So Catherine of Aragon is written by Candace Fleming, Henry VIII is written by M.T. Anderson, Anne Boleyn is written by Stephanie Hemphill, Jane Seymour is written by Lisa Ann Sandell, Anne of Cleves is written by Jennifer Donnelly, Catherine Howard is written by Linda Sue Park, and Catherine Parr is written by Deborah Hopkinson. I love this time in history, so I'm super excited to read this book. I love reading about the English royals and just this different line between the Plantagenets and the Tudors and how they got to this point with Henry VIII. So those are all the books on my March TBR. Let me know down below if you have ever read any of these and what you thought about them, or if you plan on reading any of these in the future. Thank you so much for watching my video today. I will link all the books that I mentioned today down below in the description if you wanted to check those out on Amazon, as well as all my social media accounts will be linked down below as well. Thank you so much. I'll see you next time. Bye.